And we're back, everybody. Welcome in. This is From the Pocket, coming at you on a Thursday. In case you missed Monday's episode, Christian and I went through the top draft classes, the ones that we loved from the draft back in April a couple weeks ago. Today's episode is going through the ones that maybe we didn't like as much, or at least the more controversial ones. I have a list of maybe about 7 or 8 teams right here, and a few of them I didn't necessarily dislike, but I know there's been a lot of controversy surrounding them. So I did at least want to talk about them and maybe give some perspective as to, why I can kind of maybe understand what they did, but also talk about the downsides and kind of talk about where some of those concerns are coming from. Before we get into it, some housekeeping. Next week, we're going to talk about schedule releases. Schedule releases come out today, so very excited about that. I think Monday's episode is probably going to be the AFC reaction. Thursdays is probably going to be the NFC. Probably not going to spend a ton of time on it. Just want to go over some of the nuggets, the primetime games, the teams that had the most primetime games, the international schedule, some games that we're excited about, just some teams that maybe caught some tough breaks with how some of the scheduling lined up for them. So a lot of fun. Again, not big in terms of predictions. Those are going to be coming way later. Just something to kind of react to the schedule and give some perspective from what we're seeing. But to get back to the subject at hand, going to be going through some of the more, call it controversial draft classes from April. So we got to start. I think the big one is the Los Angeles Rams. Feels like the Rams really had a lot of feast and famine in this offseason. You look at their free agency class, which they didn't really do a lot in free agency technically. Their big trade was Trent McDuffie, and I think everybody really loved that move. It was a first-rounder to immediately go fix what their issue was last year, signing Jalen Watson as well to their other corner, bringing back Cam Curl. I think there was a lot of love for what they did, but then you get to the draft, and, Max Clare in the second round, I think makes a lot of sense. They're running a lot more 13 personnel. They drafted Terrence Ferguson last year in the second round, so I think that is a way to continue to bolster that room. Keegan Trost in the third round is another great one. CJ Daniels in the sixth, and then Tim Keenan in the seventh. So those are kind of probably more rotational guys trying to make the roster. But the big one, the one that everybody is upset about, and maybe rightfully so, is Ty Simpson at 13. A lot of smoke, you could say, a lot of rumors that the Rams were going to take Ty Simpson at 13. I think outside of Ty Simpson, a lot of the consensus was Mekhi Lemon landing there, or whatever receiver they liked. At that point, Mekhi Lemon would have been the clear-cut receiver to land there because, Jordan Tyson and Carnell Tate had already been taken. I actually liked the idea of them taking Kenyon Sadiq. I thought, just some kind of weapon for them at that point to kind of bolster what they're trying to do this year. Or even offensive line depth. Maybe you take an edge rusher. Ruben Bain was still there. So a lot of options, really, to bolster any number of areas on their team. And even if you want to talk about post this season, preparing for a lot of free agents in the upcoming free agency cycle after this season. Puka Nacua still looking for a deal. Devontae Adams probably is not coming back. Byron Murphy and I think Kobe Turner, off the top of my head, are both free agents as well. So, a lot of potential upcoming holes, some depth on the O-line needed, a lot of areas they could have gone. And they went Ty Simpson, which, to me, I think the controversy really just stems from the idea that people just don't like Ty Simpson. I think if this was a loaded quarterback class and they got a quarterback at 13 that everybody felt really good about being kind of that upper first-round pick talent, I don't think you would have this reaction. I think everybody would understand it because on paper you're saying, look, we have a 13th overall pick. Unless things go way, way, way sideways next year, we're not going to be picking this high next year. And we're the Rams. We really don't pick that high that often anyway. So We have a 13th overall pick. We have an opportunity to get a quarterback of the future that we're probably not going to have any other season. Let's use it on a quarterback, and a quarterback that we like. And again, in that sense, it's kind of in the eye of the beholder, right? If they like Ty Simpson, then this is a great pick. And if Ty Simpson hits, I think this is a great pick. I don't think people are mad at the idea that they took a quarterback. And I've seen some people, I think, being really silly where, people are like, I saw one take that was like, well, why is it okay for the Raiders to sit Fernando Mendoza, but it's not okay for the Rams to sit Ty Simpson for a year or two? And it's like, because the Rams are in a totally different spot of their build than the Raiders are, but also B, again, if Ty Simpson was a more popular draft prospect, I do not think people would care that much. I think people would maybe even be a little excited about the Rams building for the future in that way. And to be honest, again, like a lot of the picks I just gave you are building for the future, right? You would have drafted a Ruben Bain. How often are you playing Ruben Bain with what they have on that front four? Like he's going to get snaps, but I don't know if you're planning on him being your every down starter all the way, at least not this season. You draft an offensive lineman, probably a rotational guy. You draft Mekhi Lemon, probably going to be your third receiver. Like, it's not necessarily, like, whatever the Rams were picking, they were bolstering their roster and building for the future. I think people are just mad because taking Ty Simpson at 13 when a lot of people, I think, had a second-round grade on him at best, I think is just where the controversy comes from. So I understand why the Rams did it. If they like Ty Simpson and they think he is the future, this move makes a lot of sense. If you don't like Ty Simpson, you hate this move. It's just as simple as that. So I understand why they did it. Personally, me, I'm not big on Ty Simpson. I don't think Ty Simpson is going to be that good in the NFL. Not to say he'll be bad, but this was the team that a few years ago decided that Jared Goff was not physically gifted enough to get them over the hump. He just could not do everything they needed him to do to get over the hump. And they went and got Matt Stafford, who is one of, just in terms of talent, the best quarterbacks to probably ever play the sport. And I got to tell you, Jared Goff is a better physical athlete than Ty Simpson. I mean, he's a better thrower of the football. He's got a better arm. I do not see how we're going from Jared Goff's not good enough for us to let's go get Ty Simpson. And again, the whole Les Snead, Sean McVay element, I don't, how mad was Sean McVay? I don't know. I'm not in the building, but it's very odd to me. And I know Sean McVay was the one clamoring for Matt Stafford more than I think Les Snead was. I think he was really trying to convince the front office to let him have Matt Stafford. So I could see a reality where Sean McVay is looking at this pick going, this guy is not good enough to be in my system. And Les Snead is looking at somebody like Brock Purdy saying, if we can just get a guy like that, because, it's that Shanahan system. It's that kind of, we're going to run it out of this formation and we're going to disguise everything and everything's going to look the same. And we're trying to run the ball and establish the run. Sean McVay likes to throw the ball a little more, but that's because he's got Matt Stafford. I wonder if this is a signal to say, hey, if we can get like a Brock Purdy type of guy, a Kirk Cousins type of guy, we can be successful. I don't know, but I can understand why they did it. Okay. Moving on from the Rams. We got to talk about the Jaguars. So again, the controversy with the Jaguars was they took Nate Borkature at number 56. This is a very rich tight end class, and to be honest, the reporting I'm hearing, I think we can get a little arrogant outside of kind of the walls of these teams because we have our consensus boards. We have everything we feel about these players, and that's not necessarily always aligning with what these teams feel. And a lot of people on the outside had Nate Borkature as kind of a day 3 tight end, not somebody that you should prioritize drafting this early, especially not with your first pick in the draft. And I get that, but Also, the reporting I've heard is that Nate Borkature was, if he didn't go at 56, he was going to go soon after. From the reporting I've heard, there were multiple teams interested in taking Nate Borkature that high. And if that's the case, I don't feel bad about the player that they picked. To me, the beef I have is the position that they're picking. Again, this is your first draft pick in the draft. You didn't have a first-round pick, and you have an established tight end already. You had so many losses in free agency that you really couldn't address because just financially you're strapped. You lost a star linebacker. You lost your star running back. And to go in here and draft a tight end with your first pick is, especially when this is, again, you like Nate Borkature, that's awesome, but there's probably a lot of tight ends after Nate Borkature that are still really, really good. This was an incredibly deep tight end class. I think all told, 8 tight ends went in day 2. So the idea that you couldn't pick another tight end at 81 or even 88 or even 100 or even 119, any of those in the top 4 rounds, I struggle with that. So again, everybody's mad about because they're like, well, Nate Borkature's not a good player. I don't know why they reached for Nate Borkature. Look, if the reporting I'm hearing is true, a lot of people really like Nate Borkature. And I'm not going to sit here and hit on the Jaguars for taking a player that the consensus boards just don't think is that good, but the other NFL teams do. I'm more mad about the fact that they took a tight end when they have Brenton Strange, they have other needs, and it's why are you investing your second round pick in a tight end? That just doesn't compute to me. This feels like they're drafting for that second or third tight end spot, and I think you can get plenty of second or third tight ends later on in the draft. So it's the Jaguars kind of telling everybody this is our priority, and I do not understand that as a priority. So that's my beef with it. But sifting through the rest of their draft, I like Albert Regis in the 3rd. I love the Emmanuel Pregnon pick in the 3rd as well. I was surprised Emmanuel Pregnon fell as far as he did. I think he's really good. Jalen Husky, this was very much a depth-driven draft. That's what the Jaguars were trying to go, is they were trying to build depth, and I think they did that. So I'm not as down on their draft as much as everybody else is. I think their draft generally was okay. They ended up taking Tanner Koziol anyway from Houston in the 5th round at tight end. So, they took 2 tight ends in this draft. I really don't know what they're doing with the top pick, and I think people see the top pick and they're grading these teams a lot based off what they did in round 1 and round 2. I don't think the rest of their draft was that bad. I just think their priorities at the top of it were a little odd. So, that's where I land on the Jaguars. Okay. We next have to talk about the Cardinals. The Cardinals. Jeremiah Love at 3, which I will get into in a second. Have a lot of thoughts on that. Chase Basantes at the 2nd round pick at 34. I love that pick. Carson Beck in the 3rd. No idea why they chose to take Carson Beck in the 3rd round. I feel like I have a sense of it, but I don't like the rationale. And then 4th round, Caleb Proctor at defensive tackle. I was a big fan of that one as well. So a lot of when they went and hit the trenches, I thought they did good. I think they got a quality starter for both their offensive and defensive lines. Caleb Proctor might be more of a rotational initially, but I think it was great value. And I think even if he's not a starter now, he will be a starter in short order for this team. I really like Caleb Proctor as a prospect. But let's talk about Jeremiah Love. So I think I kind of wanted to take a minute to kind of explain my perspective on it, because I think everybody looks at the Jeremiah Love pick and everybody understands why it's not a good pick, right? Everybody understands that we all love Jeremiah Love. Jeremiah Love is phenomenal. Jeremiah Love is going to probably be the top pick in everybody's rookie fantasy drafts, and rightfully so. He's amazing. And this very well, 2 or 3 years from now, Jeremiah Love could be a top 5 running back in the NFL. And the Cardinals will be able to say, we have a top 5 running back in the NFL. I understand that piece of it. But it's pretty obvious the Cardinals did not need Jeremiah Love. They have so many other needs, and they chose to draft a running back that, you talk about they don't really have a quarterback at this point. They have Gardner Minshew, Jacoby Brissett, now Carson Beck. Like, that's not a compelling quarterback room for the next 3 to 4 years. Like, they're clearly going to be drafting a quarterback next year. They don't have a great receiver room. Michael Wilson is cool. I think he really came into his own. Marvin Harrison is still up in the air as a player. We're still kind of trying to see what he's going to be. We love Trey McBride. Trey McBride's great, and that offensive line is missing some pieces. It's got some pieces, but it still needs more. And then defensively, I understand staying away from a defensive pick. Like, the Cardinals, I don't think they know what they have defensively. They have invested so many resources on the defensive side of the ball in recent years, and they've had just so many injuries on that side of the ball. I understand why they would be hesitant to say, let's invest more into it, because straight up, like, we might find out the Cardinals have pretty good defensive talent, like, if everybody can stay healthy. So, well, okay, so then what are we drafting for? Well, if you're drafting offense, where do you want to draft? I think they should have drafted offensive line. Like, I just think they should have done that, or they should have traded out. And I understand maybe the offers weren't there to trade out. Everybody knows, like, this is not a great spot for the Cardinals to pick because there's really not an immediate need that has value for them here. Do you want to take Francis Maui-Noah at 3? It's a little rich. Spencer Fano at 3. That's a little rich. You can get into any of the other picks as well. Caden Proctor, Monroe Freeling. I don't think you want to be talking about taking them at 3. Blake Miller. So I understand the dilemma there, but to me, what this pick signals is this is a regime that is trying to save their jobs. Now, you might say, what do you mean? Mike LaFleur just got hired. Why would he feel compelled to save his job? Well, Mike LaFleur was just hired, but Monty Ossenfort, their GM, has been there since 2023, and that is a big reason why teams like to bring in their GM and their coach together, because it keeps them on the same timeline and it aligns their goals. Whereas I think this, to me, from an outside perspective, signals that their timelines are not aligned. Now, for a coach, coaches want to always win now. They want as many good guys as they can get. I don't think Mike LaFleur is mad that he gets to have Jeremiah Love on his offense. That's going to make his job as a play caller and as a scheme designer that much easier. So, when Monty Ossenfort comes in there and says, let's draft Jeremiah Love, I don't think the coaching staff has that much pushback against it because Jeremiah Love is a phenomenal player. But this is also where, while it is important to keep those two people on the same timeline, their priorities are different, right? The coach wants to win now. The GM is supposed to be developing and building a roster that is building towards the future, right? The picks that they're making are picks that we're talking about 2 to 3 years down the road, benefiting the building blocks of this team. That is how GMs are supposed to behave. And I do not feel like Monty Ossenfort with this pick is behaving that way. I feel like Monty Ossenfort with this pick is signaling my job is in jeopardy and I need to have an easy, solid win where at the end of the year I can go up to ownership and they ask me, why should we keep you around? And I go, well, I drafted a running back that was immediately a top 7 back in the league, maybe even better, and he's rookie of the year, or he's in the rookie of the year conversation. And people will go see the Cardinals to see Jeremiah Love. Like, Cardinals fans will go see that. If you draft a lineman there, they're not paying tickets to go see a lineman. Like, that is the prudent, smart move. That is how you build a team long term. But that's not moving the needle. And I think it's a lot easier to justify, I drafted the best player in this draft, even if it is at a position that is so far away from a need that you have, versus drafting a position of need for a team that, if you're doing that, you're probably not going to be there to see that team even realize. It's the same mentality of when you have a coach GM going into a year where they're on the hot seat and they start just trading away draft capital and they just start running up the credit card because none of it matters post that year if they're not there to see that year out. So that's what this has, to me, like, that's what this reeks of. It's very short-sighted, and I think it's going to hurt the team long-term. So I was not a fan of the Jeremiah Love pick. I think that is probably the best way to explain why this is such a problem beyond just they took her back that they didn't need. Like this is setting the Cardinals up for failure long term. Even if, hey, Jeremiah Love is going to be really, really good. And they're going to have a lot of fun years with Jeremiah Love. They're just going to have a lot of fun years with Jeremiah Love as they're going 5-12 and 6-11. So we'll start with the Falcons here. I think, again, they were another team that didn't have a first-round pick. Avion Terrell is their first pick, in the second round. I think that's a really cool story. We're going to get to see the Terrell brothers lining up back there, and that is a phenomenal secondary. I think, I saw a list talking about the best secondaries in the league. I think the Falcons have a conversation. They at least belong in the conversation. The Terrell brothers, I think, are both fantastic. I was a big fan of Avion Terrell, so I think he's a really good player. Jesse Bates, Xavier Watts, Bobby Bowman back there. I mean, that is a stacked secondary. And then Zachariah Branch at 3, I really liked as well. I think he is the perfect counter to Drake London, right? Drake London, this big body ball getter. Zachariah Branch is small, shifty. I'm going to get a screen out to you, and you're going to go try to take it 15, 20, 30 yards for me. So I think it's not the sexiest draft. And the fact that they lost their first rounder for James Pierce, who James Pierce is really going through a lot right now, personally. I mean, he is off the field drama out the wazoo. Who knows if he's even going to play this year? I understand in hindsight, you're like, man, we gave up a first-round pick for that guy. But James Pierce, when he was on the field, was awesome. So it was kind of a little bit of you got to take your vegetables. You don't have a first-round pick, and your team is not really that close. I think this is a decent draft for them, though. I think, again, I understand why people say it's not sexy, it's not good, and it lacks a lot, but I do think that this draft gets them closer to where they want to be. I think they're a better team for it. I think this is a year of trial for them, seeing what they have in Michael Penix. It's year one of a new regime. I think I am optimistic about the direction they are going after this draft. Again, I don't think this draft is going to move the needle a lot for them. And I think as far as value goes, I understand why people are a little miffed about the value of the picks they made. But I think it is still a step in the right direction, and I think ultimately their goal this year is not to be competitive in that sense, but more to just see what they have and start fine-tuning the roster next offseason towards that. So I tentatively liked the Falcons draft, but I understand all the value watchers and the consensus board watchers looking at this. I understand why they look at this and go, they missed out on a lot. I just don't agree with that characterization. Okay. Let's talk about I have some thoughts on the Titans. I gave my thoughts on the Titans on our previous episode because Christian did like their draft. I will probably save my longer Titans take because my take on the Titans is not so much related to their draft. It's more related to their offseason, and I did not like their offseason that much. So I will stand pat on that. We'll revisit the Titans at another time. Really, I think the only other couple left to hit. I wanted to talk about the Packers really quick. Brandon Cisse in the second round, I'm a bit of a hater. I'm not a huge fan. I was not that big on Brandon Cisse. I love the tangibles. I think he's a great athlete, and he's a very kind of aggressive corner. He likes to play man coverage a lot, so I do like that, and he's good at run support. So I'm trying to be fair to him. I just, as a coverage player, I'm just not optimistic in his upside, and so that's why I would have valued him not as a second round pick personally. There were just so many other corners I liked more than him that were second round values: D'Angelo Pons, Avion Terrell, Davison Igmanusum, even. Chris Johnson, who if you've listened to this pod, you know how much I love Chris Johnson, Colton Hood. I just taking Brandon Cisse in the second round, even though, again, it was a need for them, and I hear that, a little rich for me. But Chris McClellan in the third round, I like that pick. They got an edge player. They got a center in the 5th round too. So, they did address some needs. I don't know if personally they were players that I would have picked to help address those needs. But at the very least, the Packers, I feel like they were making it clear. I think they were in agreement with like the outside world. The outside world is like, you need these players. And the Packers said, yes, we do need these players. And we've taken players at those positions. They're just not the players I would have picked. Okay. And then look, to be fair, we got to talk about the Bears not taking an edge player. I think off the rip, I loved them taking Dylan Tinneman. They needed a safety bad. And I think taking him in the 1st round was the right move. He fell to pick 25, which, I mean, that's crazy. I did not think Dylan Tinneman would fall to 25. I didn't think he was going to get past Minnesota. So when Minnesota didn't take him, it was like, oh, dang. But then after that, look, I mean, I like Logan Jones in the 2nd round, going and getting the center that you want. Awesome. Sam Roush in the 3rd. I think he fits exactly what the Bears want, and he rounds out that tight end room beautifully. Colston Loveland, Cole Kmet, Sam Roush as your 3rd. I mean, that is a phenomenal tight end room. That might be the strongest tight end room in the National Football League. It's up there if it's not number 1. And then, getting Xavier Thomas, just a fast flying guy in the 3rd. I like some of that. Kayshawn Elliott too. What round did he went in the 5th round. Yeah, I liked the Kayshawn Elliott pick. They lost Tremaine Edmonds. My understanding from what I've been reading is he's going to probably start on special teams, but they really did need linebacker help. They had a lot of injuries last year. It was kind of one of those rooms that, like, we love it on paper, but then it just didn't come together because of injuries and unforeseen circumstances. So getting somebody like Keyshawn Elliott, I don't think you're going to see a lot of him this year unless you're really into the Bears, but he's going to be somebody I think over the next couple of years he's really going to start working his way into the rotation on defense. So that's really nice. The big elephant in the room, though, is they didn't draft an edge player, right? That they were bad last year at edge. And, I think it's a little odd what they're coming out and saying, where they're just like, why didn't y'all take any edge players? And Ben Johnson's just like, well, we like the guys we have. We just got to coach them better. And I'm like, okay, which I don't know if that's a knock on Dennis Allen. I think realistically, you saw this with Dennis Allen when he took over the Saints, right? Like, they went from the Saints, his first year, they were a competent defense. They were improved. And then year over year, you saw them get better and better until they were a top-tier defense. I almost wonder if that's what he was conveying, where it's like, give me another year with Dennis Allen and this group, and they're going to improve. Now, in their defense, on top of that, they did have some unfortunate injuries. Dio Dengbo tore his Achilles last year, right? Shamar Turner was their 2nd-round pick, and I think he only played like 5 games last year or something. I think he got hurt in October or maybe late September. I can't remember exactly. I know Austin Booker is there too. He's a 5th-rounder from a couple years ago. I don't know how prominent he's going to be. But, getting Dio Dengbo back and Shamar Turner, on paper, I think they expect that to be some real reinforcements for them. So, maybe it's a combination of things. It's A, give us another year in the system. B, we've got some dudes returning. C, and this goes for anybody, even the Vikings, to throw this out there, right? These teams that are maybe lacking edge rushers right now, there's a lot of edge rushers still out there. Jadeveon Clowney, Derek Barnett, Cam Jordan, just to name a few. Would not surprise me if those are players that end up on the Bears, the Vikings, or where have you, the closer we get to the season. So, yeah, I wish the Bears had prioritized it more. It really did feel to me like we got Dylan Tinneman. We did the thing we were supposed to do. Now let Ben Johnson just kind of do his thing. Let him go get his center in the 2nd round. Let him go get his 3rd tight end, his blocking tight end out of Stanford. Let him go get the 4.28 speedster and Xavier Thomas. But I think realistically, all of the players they drafted are going to make a real difference on this team, at least at some point. Would not surprise me if Malik Muhammad and Keyshawn Elliott are both getting meaningful snaps later on down the road in the years to come. So that's really all I got. Those were the teams that I wanted to go over, some teams that had some of the more controversial drafts. I'm looking through really quick. I know the Bills, some people didn't like the Bills. I liked the Bills pick. I liked TJ Parker for them. Just, again, the Clemson of it all is odd. Everybody in Clemson struggled last year, but like TJ Parker, I think is still a good, solid player that they need at the edge. Davison Igbenusum, I like him coming out of college, so I liked that in the second round as well. Getting a Jude Bowery, Skylar Bell in the fourth. I'm happy that Skylar Bell ended up going to a team like them. And Jalen Kilgore in the fifth. Big fan of Jalen Kilgore in the fifth. So I liked the Bills. I didn't hate the Bills as much as I think a lot of other teams did. I'm not going to be here all day just talking about teams. We'll talk about a lot of this as the months and weeks go on. We have a lot of offseason left, so a lot of opportunity to revisit this. But as mentioned, tune in next week because we got a lot going on with the schedule release. Cannot wait to dig into that. It's going to be a lot of fun. Until next time, take it easy, take it sleazy. I love you. I cherish you. Give me a like, give me a comment, give me a rating, give me a share. Talk about me at the water cooler. We're on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast. Appreciate you. Until next time, bye.